Hello again, we are again here at the Future Summit organized by Social Innovations Solutions, and we are here today with Patrick Nathen, co-founder and VP product at LILIUM Aviation. Hello sir. And Giorgio Cortiana, head of energy intelligence at E.ON.
Hello.
Hello. How are you? What do you think about the Future Summit? How do you think today was, please?
Uh, so far it has been extremely good. Really high profile of visitors, really high profile of questioning and triggering thoughts. So far very, very good and very impressed.
Mr. Cortiana.
The same here. I think it's really a good event, bringing together different players from different sectors and with the really commitment to do things for a better future.
We are here to talk about artificial intelligence and energy and mobility. And let's start talking about mobility. Mr. Nathen, you brought the most fun gadget. Let's say gadget, the flying taxi.
Yeah.
How did that come up? How did you manage to do that?
5 years ago, when the idea was actually created, our co-founder and currently CEO Daniel was in Glasgow. He was watching a YouTube video about the Osprey, this military vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, basically, and he had this idea: this should be possible for everybody, and it should be all electric, so you can transport people on demand. And this is how the idea came up. He came back from Glasgow to Munich. He got in contact with Sebastian and me, and then afterwards also with Matthias, and then we decided to found this company.
Was it difficult to build from the concept to the final machine?
Very, because there was not only a technical solution that has to be built, prototypes to be built, but at the same time also trying to get money for financing this all together. So it was really, really crazy, but really, really, really cool times also. Yeah.
Mr. Cortiana, this comes these kind of machines, like also we have today electric vehicles, and what we need is to power them. We need to charge the batteries. I know E.ON has a lot of charging stations, even in Romania. How many are they today, and how many do you think we're gonna need in the future?
Well, certainly the infrastructure is being built, and we have plans to extend this in the future. There are various kind of charging stations you can have depending on the speed that they can charge. But certainly I would say at the moment we don't yet have the full infrastructure to really serve to come fleets of e-vehicles. Of course, these are things that goes together, because you don't want to build infrastructure if at the end you don't have the customer. So it's kind of interconnected things that we have to look carefully what is the penetration of e-mobility in our countries, and then build on demand and on time basically the necessary requirements in the infrastructure. And in terms of electricity, of course, what you can really hope for the future is that more and more renewable energy sources will be entering in the energy mix, so that it's not just about being electrical, but also being sustainable.
And it also creates the need for storage, because you're gonna have the storage to store that energy that is produced by wind and solar, and if you don't use it, well, you lose it.
Yeah, actually it's a good question, and I think the e-mobility as a whole offer tremendous opportunity in this area, because if you think about e-car, it's actually a moving batteries that you can use to really store, if you do things in a coordinated way, excess of energy in a particular location, maybe close to a wind park or a solar farm, and really make use efficiently of the energy. There are technologies nowadays that allows bidirectional exchange between vehicles and buildings, or vehicle and the grid, and these are really key enablers to boost the energy transition. Of course, it requires a lot of coordination and complexity, and that's where the AI can play a big role.
Is the technology coming before the policymakers are able to update the regulations for all that?
I think it's to some extent yes. I mean, we have seen in some situation where we could basically deliver some services to the customers and maybe use, for example, of peer-to-peer technologies to share energy between close-by households or things like that. And this is actually against some of countries' regulations. So in that sense, we could say in some area we were more advanced that the regulation would allow. I think, however, it's also quite normal because we have to show what is the art of the possible and make clear what are the benefits in order to then have the regulator changes the laws that are governing the energy sector, for example. So it's much easier to convince people to go the right way when you have really facts and not only speculation about what the future should look like.
Speaking of mobility, Mr. Nathen, I think, I don't know, all the sci-fi movies and everything, they were just focusing on flying cars and make it a lot easier to go from a place to the other. When are we going to see that?
Soon. So we are expecting to be on multiple locations in the world launched during 2025. So this, of course, requires an initial first paying customer a little bit upfront. Before that, when this will be exactly, I cannot tell right now because the decision making is right now in place in order to drive this kind of decisions. But we will be, you will see it in 2025 in definitely multiple regions around the world.
Which are the main challenges for implementing this technology? Do you need the places, the charging stations?
It is a mixture, I would think, from integration the technology, which is not only in technology part, but like much more also as a socio-economic part, like creating social acceptance for that. This is like one big piece. But I would draft it like also from a company perspective to the building an aircraft, and this sounds really strange, but this is really easy.
Basically, yeah.
Because there's a set of rule works you have to follow, and then you can basically build an aircraft and certify it and fly it. Building the company that is capable of building a lot of aircrafts, that has all the processes in place, it still acts can act as a startup partly, that can build also the airline, that can also build the digital infrastructure behind it. This is the biggest challenge, actually.
But I think we have already flying taxis with helicopters.
Yeah, of course.
What is the biggest difference to that? And who is going to able? We know that the pilots, helicopter pilots, have to go through intensive training and schools and everything.
Yeah.
Are we going to be able to use the flying taxi without?
Compared to an helicopter, you would see a lot more helicopter taxis actually flying around, but they're extremely expensive, extremely loud, and not very safe. We have basically developed this as such that it's safe, reliable, robust, and cheap to use. And I think there we make the difference. But of course they are.
But we're still going to need somebody to drive it.
Yeah. So we would design it for commercial pilots. So the one who's flying your A380 will be also able to fly this aircraft.
Mr. Cortiana, where are we on autonomous vehicles, driverless vehicles? Well, the technology is pushing forward, but yet we don't really see a driverless vehicle.
I think there are good examples, and there are tests, and there are cars that have run millions of kilometers around the globe, just being automatically steered. I think the technology there, it's quite mature, I would say. There are too some implications that needs to be sorted out. So it's about when it comes to make a decision, for example, if you can avoid an accident, which action do you take? And this is kind of connected to the moral of an electric vehicles, because it can create some deaths, and there is a lot of debates how this could really be sorted, because it's then deterministic. As a human, one human could take an actions, maybe saves one life and kill the other, unfortunately. But if you program it in a way that the machine knows what you should do, it will always deterministically do that. So I think we are getting there. There are some surrounding things that we need to sort it out before we can really roll out.
The first thing we need to sort out is the moral dilemma. It's an ethical problem, but it's not a technological one.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a key in order to have it really roll out. For the technological point of view, there are key players that are all working into that, and I said we have good examples.
Yeah.
They are good at, in the controlled environment, or environment where we have enough knowledge. But for example, it's not clear how a car which is trained to drive in a city center, for example, can really deal with countryside situation where having wild animals coming in. So there are a lot of kind of improvement that can be done. It's not exactly my field of expertise, but for what I can read and perceive from the papers, there's still some work to be done. But the biggest stuff is really the moral dilemma, if you want.
It's interesting because even if we don't realize it yet, right now we cannot really drive, let's say, airplanes without the help of the machines. Because it's a huge airplane, like commercial airplane. It's not a small thing that you can do that and let's fly. No, it's a huge machine behind it. It's computer processed, and without the information processed by those computers, we wouldn't be able to fly that plane. And I think it's going to be the case for the cars also, which are today more and more computerized, let's say. And this is where AI comes in.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think I would see this type of technology as augmenting the human capabilities, if you want. So it's really supporting and in the difficult tasks that one might have to fly an airplane, for example, or for example to check that everything is fine in the system, and there are alert in case there are some no visibility area or things like that, implementing more safety measures. So in that sense, I would see this technology really as a help for the society to get better around and more safely.
It's in Europe, you cannot produce a big truck today without having all this implemented. You have to make sure that the truck stops by itself and so on, and so we are going there. What do you think, Mr. Nathen? How high is the AI involvement in let's say, in the flying taxi?
I think, and this is sounds like a really crazy sentence, but autonomous flying is much easier than autonomous driving.
That's true.
Because you have a very clearly defined path that you have to fly on. Every aircraft needs to talk with every aircraft. Every aircraft needs to talk to air traffic control, and every air traffic control talks to the ground, etc. So it is a very well-defined environment where you don't have kids jumping on the street, the moral dilemma as a whole, that's existing. And then come the additional parts, like what happens when a pilot does not do X, Y, Z, although he's supposed to do X, Y, Z. The decision making is in the sky much easier. I think, and looking at the big cities where huge traffic problems are existing, and recently I saw it in Zurich, for example, a huge traffic jam over on two crossing streets. Basically, there was no signature on the ground on which, for example, a car could ever comply with, and just like chaos. So I think from that sense, we are farther away from autonomous driving, purely autonomous driving, than autonomous flying. And in addition to that, it's also always very important, do we really want to have autonomous driving or flying level 5, so this completely self, or is it necessary enough to have, like, for example, autonomous level 4 and have like one person observing 5 vehicles on the ground, 5 aircrafts in the sky. And I think this is like also a question we have to ask there. What is the whole scope of this mission?
It's going to be interesting to see, because one way or another, and we are experiencing this problem here in Bucharest, there are too many cars, there are so many cars, it's so crowded, and it's, we have traffic jams every day. So one way or another, I think we should see, not necessarily driverless, but we should see cars communicating with each other, because if they are communicating, we can see in the way the drones are working today. And if they are communicating, it would be easier to get over a traffic jam.
Or not just one person in a car, but rather having
Exactly,
like much higher load factors.
That's true. That's true. Also, one of the things, it's not technology. It's I think the way we see transportations in cars and everything, it's the concept of giving up property and use rentals, sharing economy. Do you think we're gonna get there? Because there are still people that I just want to have the car in my backyard.
I think funny we talked exactly about this on the stage. So very short. I think it must come, and it comes with a shift of a mindset. And when the problems, people are like funny, or humans are like funny individuals. Like once the problem is like so tremendous, everybody would actually try to find a different solution. So I think. It is now the time to basically show what would be the opportunity behind it to do it and go the shared economy instead of the individual economy way.
Yeah, and to add on top, I think it's a way to really optimize the resources that we use, because it's really sharing these cars, which otherwise would stay for 95% of the time parked. It's a really a way to go forward and really optimize the way we move people around. Which energy, when do we charge them, in order to meet the or kind of relieve some network the congestion constraints and things like that, or increase, the usage of renewable that we can make. And there, I think, is where we can make a difference.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for being here. It was a really interesting talk, and hope to see you again.
Thank you.
Hope to see you again soon.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you.